So today I was supposed to go diving, but the weather's going to end up a bit wild, so I thought I might make a little video on a topic I can't seem to find much about on the interweb, which is these Poseidon regulators, the Xstream and Jetstream specifically. I'm going to talk about how they differ from a standard regulator, because it's not a well documented topic. Plenty of people understand it, but it's I think worth putting out there. I'm not going to be showing you how to service them. Look, if you can't work it out from seeing the video stripped down, you probably shouldn't be servicing them, and that's okay. It is life support equipment. You want to be confident. So what I'll talk about first is actually a standard regulator, which works as a downstream demand valve. So what you have here is a little breathing tube, a lever that is operated by a diaphragm. When you inhale, this lever is pressed down, and what that does inside is actually open up a little cone seat. See if we can get this open and show you these parts. In here you have a little cone seat, then that pushes on this little rubber valve here. Let's see if we can get it to focus. The movement, that pushing against that, is what seals the air up. When you breathe in, the lever pulls this away, allows air through and into the main body of the regulator. These two regulators are pilot operated, which means they work differently. There's actually a little pilot valve in them that then allows a larger valve to open that gives you airflow. So part of the upshot of that is that if the pressure gets too high in this regulator, it becomes harder to breathe. So having a relief valve either integrated into the hose in the earlier models or into the regulator is critical. In the traditional sort, if the air pressure gets higher, it actually ends up pushing these two apart and it'll end up free flowing. So if you tune a reg a bit too loose for breathing, this will leak slightly, and that's where you can get a hissing reg. Other reason can just be grit in between these surfaces. So we'll have a little look at the Xstream first. Pulling these apart is fairly simple. This is an adapter that allows you to use standard hoses. The old ones, the hose ended here and the relief was actually built into there. You need to push the body out. You can use your finger, but it usually ends up with a hole in it if you do that. So much easier to get something to give it a little nudge. And that is the internals of our Xstream. It'll be very similar to the Jetstream. We have a pilot valve here, and in here is the main valve that's actuated by this pilot operation, and that's where the air actually comes out. Let's see if we can get this apart. So I've loosened up some of this just off camera for simplicity. What we have here, when we start to strip this, we actually have the adjustment here. This adjusts how easy and hard the rig is to breathe. You have to loosen this little grub screw, and then that allows this to turn and come apart. We then have the main body, which will come out. Yeah. So the pilot is a very small hole through there, which then goes to a little valve here. And when you breathe in, this is pushed down, which allows a tiny amount of air to escape. That then operates on this part here, which will be a bit of a pain to get out. Time to give it a little nudge. This is the secret sauce in it. Air can flow through here and inflate this rubber valve, which seals up against this. When the pilot valve, it flows through here as well. When the pilot valve releases air, it causes a pressure differential, which then means this can collapse and air is then allowed to flow out through here. That's basically it. There is not much to them. They are a very simple regulator. We can pull this further apart and you'll see that there is not much in here either. little tube, little O-ring, and then at the very end here is our pilot valve here. And I don't know how well we'll get this, but you can see just a little bit of metal there, and when you breathe in, it just tilts slightly and allows air to flow through. And that's it really. That's both of them use the same system. These very seldom wear out. They can do, but very rarely. They tend to just need a bit of a clean. And your service tech will let you know if they have gone past their useful life. Now on an Xstream, you have a diaphragm up the top here and more traditional exhaust valves under here. There's your exhaust mushroom. The diaphragm lives under here. See if we can get that off. There's a diaphragm. Breathe in, moves on it. No pre-dive mode on it. They just are how they are, and you move on with your life. You tune them properly, they're fine. They don't tend to misbehave too much. They will free flow a little easily, but nothing too major. The Jetstream, the older model, does have a pre and post dive. This one's interesting in that the exhaust valve and diaphragm are all in one piece up here. So it does change the characteristic a little bit. This lever basically just lifts the diaphragm off the pilot valve to make it a little harder to get the cracking pressure. I had this one apart, so it wasn't too bad. Otherwise, very similar. We've got a main body, this one's still tight, slightly longer tube. That's it. Down in there, it might be able to see the little valve. Not really. Anyway, there's just a fork that lifts that. That's screwed on, don't really want to take it off. That is the basics of these. Now, the downside to this design is that it takes air pressure to seal it. So that's why when these are first turned on, you hear a blast of air as it takes time for that rubber valve in there to actually inflate and seal up on the inside of this. And that's that noise you hear when these first turn on. The downside to that is if you've got a reg on a cylinder that is switched off, you shove it in your face, it's full of water, you turn the cylinder on, it will blast water down your face, which can lead to some problems. I've known some people that have banned them on their course because they've had a few bad reactions. It's just a case of knowing your equipment and knowing how it's going to behave. Other than that, I think that's about all there is to be said on these on a basic overview. Thank you very much. As a follow-up, I thought I might show the relief features on these just so you can see where they are. This reg was actually set up with both. See in the bottom here, we actually have a little relief valve there for the IP, so if it gets too high, that will leak there. This one also has the old Poseidon style hose. You can see possibly that does move, and that the fitting on it is quite different. And that is the other relief on them is built in to this hose here. So just so you're aware, that's what's happening with those if you see them in the wild.